Now while you're watching this video, please remember to like, share this video, subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon for notifications of future videos. Thank you. Hello there, welcome back to my channel guys. Yes, I have for you yet again another exciting video. I know you all must have missed me since I uploaded my last video. Right, today at the timing of this video, it's Wednesday, July 20, 2021. This is the day where I do text explanation. Right guys, today we'll be looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verses 34 to 35 in particular. Should women keep silent in church? This is what we want to talk about, and this is a text that would often be used, right, to basically say that women cannot be preachers, they cannot be pastors. I did a video again some time back, you can find it. Alright, I'm going to try and post the video in the comment section, right, where I talk about women being pastors or bishop, and I affirm that a woman can be a pastor, just not a bishop. Pastor and a bishop, it has its similarities, but it is somewhat different, right? I stated that bishop is reserved for men only, but a woman can indeed be a pastor. Now, one of the objections that would be raised is 1 Corinthians 14 verses 34 to 35, as well as 1 Timothy 2, right, verses, I think it's 11 to 15. I covered that one already, so now we'll be looking at 1 Corinthians 14 verses 34 to 35. Right guys, now y'all should know about my new channel, right? It's already uploaded, right? It's called Changing Minds. I'm going to post a link of that channel in the comment section for you to basically check it out, right? Now, with that being said, let us talk about 1 Corinthians 14 verse 34 to 35. I must say this is a very challenging verse to explain. It is far more challenging than 1 Timothy 2 verse 11 to 15. But nevertheless, I believe that we can still unravel what this verse is actually saying. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to do this in a more, I'm going to do it in a simplified way. First, beginning at 1 Corinthians 14 verse 1. It reads thus. I shall be reading from, I'll use different translations as I see fit. For now, let's use the KJV. Follow after charity and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that he may prophesy. So already you see that what Paul is about to talk about in this chapter, it is about spiritual gifts, right? He ended this chapter by saying, let all things be done decently and in order. That should tell you that basically the subject, or the body should say, of this chapter is about spiritual gifts and how it should be used or regulated in the church. The very fact that it began and talking about spiritual gifts and ended by saying that all things must be done in decent and in order, it should tell you that the body is about spiritual gifts and how it should be used in an orderly fashion in the church. Right? That is important to note. Now verse 22 and verse 23. Right? Or verse 23 and 24 rather. It reads thus. If therefore the whole church be come together into one place, and all speak with tongues. Let me repeat that part. All speak with tongues, and there come in those that are unlearned or unbelievers, will they not say that ye are mad? But if all prophesy, and there come in one that believeth, or one unlearned, he is convinced of all, he is judged of all. So what these two verses alone is telling you, that Paul is expecting that all in the church should possess the capacity to speak in tongues. However, all in the church can have the gift of speaking in tongues. However, all should not speak in tongues in the church at a time. right? All cannot speak in tongues at the same time in the church. No, this is telling you that basically women can speak in church. If this wasn't so, why would Paul say that if the whole church come together and all speak in tongues? Right? Unless you believe that in the church at Corinth, it was just purely males. This is the only way you could read these two verses and get from it that women cannot speak in church, speak in tongues in church. Right? Unless you think that the church at Corinth had purely males alone. And if that's what you believe, nothing can be further from the truth than that. Now, what it also tells us that all can actually prophesy. Now, the Greek word for prophesy in that text is prophet, yo-yo. I'm not a scholar, guys, so I'm not the best when it comes to pronouncing Hebrew and Greek. I might not pronounce it right, but you'll see it on the screen, the Greek word for prophesy there. It means to foretell events, speak under inspiration, right? Exercise the prophetic office. That is what it means, basically to speak, right? And this is telling you that both men and women can actually do this. It is the same word that we find in 1Corinthians 11 verse 5, when it says, but every woman that prayeth or prophesy with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head, for that is evil all one, and if she were shaven. So this is basically telling you that women can pray and prophesy or speak under inspiration in the church, right? However, she must have her head covered when she does this. Now I have a video where I talk about head covering, where I show you that based on the context, right? In those days, at the culture, it was based on the culture, it wasn't comely for a woman to pray or prophesy, right, without her head covered. So for the sake of culture, Paul encouraged women, that is married women, right? If you're not married, then it doesn't go for you, right? If you're not married, it doesn't go for you. You have to check out that video to see that. I'll post it in the comment section, or you can find it in my playlist section titled Christian Adornment, right? It should be there where I talk about head covering, right, guys? So in the context of this, a married woman, right, should have her head covered, right? That is in the culture in those days, but I stated that we are removed from that culture. So therefore, even if you're not married, or even if you're married, should say, you don't have to abide by this anymore. Paul only said that in order to suit the culture back then, and thereby not giving an offense, right, to the people in those days. So if you're not married, it doesn't go for you, and even if you're married, you don't have to go by this because you're not under the culture anymore. You will find that laid out in details in those videos, right? I just choose to stress that point, but this is not what we want to talk about. The point I want you to take from this verse, 1 Corinthians 11 verse 5, is that Paul, based on what this is saying, it is saying that it is natural that women can prophesy or pray in church. That is, they can pray or they can speak in church. The word for prophesy is the same word used for prophesy in 1 Corinthians 14 verse 24 there. So it is showing you that all can actually prophesy in the church, but all shouldn't do it at the same time. Right? This is what Paul is actually saying. That is why he said all things should be done decently and in order. In verse 30, right? I'm going to use a different translation now. Let me read from verse 27. Should say onwards, using New Living Translation. Right? It's just for understanding, to make it simpler. I hope the KJV only is don't attack me. You can compare it with your KJV and see if it's actually saying anything different. Right? Now it reads thus: no more than 2 or 3 should speak in tongues. They must speak one at a time, and someone must interpret what they say. Right? But if no one is present who can interpret, they must be silent in your church meeting and speak in tongues to God privately. Let 2 or 3 people prophesy, and let the others evaluate what is said. So 2 or 3 people should prophesy, let the others evaluate what is said. But if someone is prophesying and another person receives a revelation from the Lord, the one who is speaking, right, that is the one who is prophesying, they must stop. Stop then and allow the person who received the revelation from the Lord to speak. Right? Verse 31, in this way, all who prophesy will have a turn to speak, and one after the other, so that everyone will learn and be encouraged. Right? Remember that people who prophesy are in control of their spirit and can take turns. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace, as in all the meetings of God's holy people. So you see that the emphasis is about how spiritual gifts. The emphasis is sorry about that, guys. The emphasis is about how spiritual gifts should be utilized in the church. It must be done in order. All cannot speak at a time. All cannot prophesy at a time. All cannot speak in tongues at a time. If one is doing it and another wants to, they should wait their turn, so that what is said first, so that the first person who is speaking, another person can interpret. We hear what it is that they're saying, and then the next person gets their turn to basically speak. Right? And as I would have shown from verse 23 and verse 24, all persons, both male and female, can speak in tongues, and both male and female can prophesy. Therefore, both male and female can speak in the church. That is clear cut. Now let's go to verse 34. Women should be silent during church meetings. It is not proper for them to speak. They should be submissive, just as the law says. Right? If they have any questions, they should ask their husband at home, for it is improper for women to speak in church meetings. Now earlier, you would have learned that women can speak in church meetings. They can speak in tongues in church meetings. They can prophesy in church meetings. You find that in verse 23 and 24. Right? Why then is Paul going to say no, that women should keep silent in church meetings, for it's not proper for them to speak? In 1 Corinthians 11, he said that he talk about women praying or prophesying in the church, showing that women can even pray then in the church. Women, he's not basically saying that women should shut their mouth in church. They shouldn't pray, prophesy, or they shouldn't speak in tongues in the church. Or they shouldn't speak at all. They should just shut up when they are in church. No, this is not what Paul is saying. So why then do they say that they should be silent in the church? That it's not proper for them to speak. Is he contradicting himself now? The answer to that is no. And here's how I'm going to prove that. Verse 35, it tells us that if they have any question, they should ask their husbands at home, for it is improper for women to speak in church. Right? KJV says, if they will learn anything, let them ask their husband at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church. Now, what if they don't? What if there's a woman in the church that doesn't have a husband? Should she learn nothing then? Does she have the prerogative then to basically should she just be dense then and learn absolutely nothing when she come to church? Because she don't have a husband to teach her? Absolutely not. You would have read in, let me see, you would have read in verse 31, right? Where it says, NLT, in this way, all who prophesy will have a turn to speak, one after the other, so that everyone will learn and be encouraged. Right there we see that Paul is expecting both male and female to learn when they come in church and be encouraged. Right? But here now he's saying to the woman that they should learn at home. Right? Doesn't it seem like a contradiction? They shouldn't speak in church, but if they want to learn anything, they should learn at home. And earlier he's saying that everyone should learn, that everyone can learn. Now he's saying that women shouldn't learn in church, they should learn at home. Anyone who is reading this should think and say that there is something deeper happening, because there is no way Paul was saying earlier in the verse that he wants everyone to learn, both male and female. Now he's saying that the women should learn at home. They must keep their mouth shut, right? Learn anything they want to know. Ask the husband and learn at home.
The memory is full and you have to clean up your Android.
Right?
The memory is full.
So, my apologies, guys. Why would Paul now be contradicting himself? The verses can only make sense, right? If it is that Paul is trying to restrict married women, because notice, it is said that they should ask their husband at home. Therefore, this message, these verses, is being directed at husband and wife. If it was a case where it wasn't directed just to husband and wife, Paul would have made, alright, let me fix that. Paul doesn't make any provision, right, for those who are not married, by saying that, well, if the woman is not married, then she should go and ask someone else in the church. You notice that Paul made no such provision for women in the church who are not married, because he's expecting for all women to learn. That is the only way it can make sense, He's expecting for all women to learn, so he made no provision for women who is not married. Right? So, it is an issue that deals with husband and wife, and the verse can only make sense if he's actually trying to say that, listen, women, they shouldn't exercise they shouldn't exercise, right, any gift or privilege in such a way where it seems to be usurping her husband's authority in the church. Right? This is the only way the verse can actually make sense, right? If the husband is exercising a spiritual gift in the church that requires him to speak, right? Whether it be speaking tongues or to prophesy, the woman shouldn't just try to stop him and say, honey, stop. Stop right there. I need to hear what you're saying. No, you shouldn't stop him. Allow your husband to speak and do not interrupt what he's actually saying, because it seems rather disrespectful. If you want to know what your husband is saying, right, in the church, wait until you reach home and then you ask him what it is that he's actually saying. Right? You get some clarity on the message that is basically given, but don't just usurp his authority and just stop him right there. Right? This is the only way the verse can make sense, because he wants everyone to learn. Right? You see that in verse 31. He wants everyone, male and female, to learn. So, if it is that she doesn't have a husband, are you going to say that she shouldn't learn nothing, she should keep silent in church? What if she doesn't have a husband? This is what you have to think about, because Paul made it clear that everyone is to learn. What is she going to do if she doesn't have a husband? And Paul made no provision in the text, in the chapter, for women who don't have husband. It only makes sense, as I've said before, I'm repeating myself for emphasis. It will only make sense if it is a case where Paul doesn't want, while a husband is exercising a prophetic gift, whether speaking in tongue or prophesying, he doesn't want the woman to stop and interrupt him and say, listen, honey, I need to understand what you're saying. No, don't stop him and interrupt him. Wait till I reach at home. Right? This is what the verse is saying, because verse 23 and verse 24 made it clear that both men and women can speak in the church. If all speak in tongues in the church, right? If all prophesy, right? If all speak in tongues in the church, a non-believer come in and hear you, he's going to think you're mad. If you find all male, both male and female, everybody speaking, it's a clear indication that women can speak in the church. Right? But a married woman, while her husband is exercising the prophetic gift, don't interrupt him. Wait till he reach at home. This is what the verse is saying. It is in no way saying that women cannot preach in church or that they cannot have any office of authority in the church. Yes, or that they cannot be pastors in the church. So with that being said, I end this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Bye bye now.